Alrighty, welcome to the 105th edition of Before the Battle here live on YouTube. My name is Nick Baldwin of BloodyElbow.com, and joining me, as always, is Jed Meshew of MMAfighting.com, and back this week for the first time, I guess since London, because London was nearly a month ago, and we've only had one card, UFC 223. That disaster, that dumpster fire of a card, still ended up being all right, but Wes Riddle, you haven't been here. Of course, Wes Riddle of MMA Saka. I gotta add that. Gotta give MMA Saka the plug there. You haven't been here since London. How are you guys doing this evening?
I'm tired.
Yeah, I appreciate the plug. I'm a little tired myself. Got a lot more sleep than Jed though. But I think the only thing I'm looking forward to, besides this UFC card, is the fact that I'm almost done with college, and then I can enjoy a few months before I into the real world to watch UFC and every MMA card as I please.
And the funniest thing about the fact that you're almost done college is I've known for a long time, ever since we started talking, really, that I'm basically like a scale behind you, where now I'm like 2 or 3 months away from finishing high school, and then I'm going off to university, and you're, basically 4 or 5 years ahead of me.
Yeah, you're going to take my shoes, and while I go ahead and just move on and not really take Jed's shoes quite yet. But I'm going to try to be looking for something. We'll have to see.
Never take my shoes, Wes. My shoes are terrible shoes.
Well, they're not bad, but I will say that I wish I did drive more cars because I would love to drive some of the cars that you drive. So I'm pretty jealous of that.
No, trust me.
Life of a part-time MMA journalist.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
Or the life of having 2 full-time jobs, which is what Jed is getting close to.
Somewhere in the neighborhood of the hours of it, at least. So,
yep,
fun times.
All right,
I'm excited because you know what's cool, fellas?
It is cool.
After this last weekend where we had 9-fight card, that was awesome and it was super fun. Now we're moving to a 14-fight card because the UFC doesn't seem to understand that less is fucking more.
Exactly.
I kind of wish we get some cancellations because I can count.
I don't kind of wish. I straight up do. There are like 4 fights on this card. Like, I'm going to be honest. This card's actually really good.
It is very good.
All of the fights individually, except for the ones that have already been fucked over by injury, are like, they make sense and they're good matchmaking. But like, we just don't need them all on the same night. Like, it's just not a thing that needed to happen. So I super hope that like at least 3 of these fights. And weigh-ins are on Friday the 13th. Maybe that bad juju will come in and knock out a couple of these because, like, when Gilbert Burns was going to fight Lando Venata, that's dope. Gilbert Burns fighting that dude from RFA or whatever the fuck he is, like, nah, I don't really care. Like, that's fine. We could just pass. Like, you pass on that. You could pass on a couple of these other ones that, like, I just don't need them. So, yeah. I hope we get some dropouts because it'd be way cooler than having a 14-fight card, which will take literally 8 hours.
Before we talk about that and preview UFC Glendale, let us go back to this past weekend. Saturday night, we had UFC 223, and finally, Khabib Nurmagomedov can call himself the UFC lightweight champion, defeating Al Iaquinta, short notice replacement, 24 hours or less, maybe a little more. He steps up, fights arguably or unarguably the best 155-pounder currently on the planet. And he gives him a fight, sort of, not really. Commentators seem to think so. Some fans seem to think so. But ultimately, it was one-way traffic for the Eagle from Dagestan, Russia. And he is the perhaps undisputed lightweight champion. We still don't know if Tony Ferguson's the interim champion. I assume he's not.
He is not.
But Dana White said the title's going away, so I don't know what's going on, but nonetheless, Khabib's the champ. That's all that matters. We also had strawweight champion Rose Namajunas defend her title for the very first time successfully in a rematch with former queen of the division, Joanna Jędrzejczyk. We had an upset with Hanada Moicano. He defeated Calvin Kattar, and some other good performances, especially one from Zabit Magomed-Sharipov. Let us go to you, Jet, for our results. What do you got for us?
You guys really got to step your fucking games up this year. Like, I am once again the champ with your picks champion going 7-2. My only misses were the opening fight of the evening. All 3 of us missed that, Rodriguez. And then I backed you on a champion all three of us did that as well. Came up short, even though I personally scored the fight for Joanna. I don't have any issues with the pros getting the win there. So I went 7-2. West coming in at 4-5. Missing on Rodriguez, Dunham, Lozon, Cater, and Joanna. And Nick, you missed on all of those. Plus, you missed on Ally and Quinta. You went bold in the main event. Got to respect the effort. Just a little short at 3-6. Our DraftKings teams, I went 569 points. I'm your victor there. West came in second with 429.5 points. Nick, you brought up the rear with 374 points. I hit on all my fighters. So, like, the three of us all had Zabit and Rodriguez. So I missed on Rodriguez, but I hit on Grutzmacher and Moicano as underdogs for a lot of point total there. So, and obviously Habib turned in a shitload of points as well. So just a big night for me there. I also correctly had my underdog, as you might have guessed. I made several underdog picks on the night. All of them won. I backed Moicano as my underdog of the evening, got that. But Wes Riddle, he did not pick any underdogs outright, but his underdog pick of the week last week was Olivier Aubin-Mercier, who, as we know, had an extremely quick knockout of Evan Dunham. And by virtue of the fact that you, Nikolai, got 0 of our bonuses picked correctly, and you were our previous bonus winner, the tie then goes to the most recent winner before that, who was Wes Riddle. So Wes Riddle, who had tied with you last week and now tying with me this week, has seniority. He takes our bonus picks title moving into this week.
I could have just kept it, but that's fine too.
But you didn't get any bonus picks correct. You got 0. If you had gotten just 1, you would have kept it. But you did not.
I didn't do any better on DraftKings or my picks. We could have.
It was a bad week for you, Nick.
Yes,
it was a bad week.
Really was. Hopefully things will turn around. But hey, this whole year, I think for Wes, you included, we've been doing pretty bad. Jed, you mentioned it right after the card, Jed. We're letting you run away with 2018, but it's only April. We have a lot of time to go.
Plenty of time left in the year, but at this point, I am currently firmly ahead.
I'm sure once I turn 18, I'll start thinking like an adult and making
could be
fair pay. Yeah. Wes, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say, just to give an idea about how bad of a year this is, if I can pull it up in time, I'm pretty sure like last year when I was doing like UFC.com's pick'em, I finished like 50th in the world or maybe better, like 42nd or something like that. And currently this year, I'm trying to pull it up. I'm 2,000. So like that's just for me, that's like a huge set down. I'm not doing good. I need to step up my game, and we're gonna hopefully start maybe with this card. We'll have to see.
Well, you got a lot of chances, dude. 14 of them to be exact.
I'm shooting for at least 8.
If we have any draws or ties, I should say, that's pretty crazy. But nonetheless, let's move on to UFC on Fox 26, going down from Glendale, Arizona this Saturday night. It is, of course, a big Fox card, so it starts a little earlier than usual, and that means we are wrapped up, ready to go to sleep or party or whatever you want to do at about 10 Eastern on a Saturday. Jed, yeah, your sleep sounds good to me as well. UFC on Fox 29, headlined by Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje. Very important fight for the 155-pound division. Not as important as Khabib's win because he technically has the belt, but nonetheless, very interesting matchup, and hopefully it may be a fight of the year contender. I hate saying that because I'm sure I just jinxed it because nothing's going the UFC's way right now, but nonetheless, let's talk about the card. We start out on the UFC Fight Pass early prelims. Last week, we had no Fight Pass prelims. This week, we have 6 of them. They're making up for lost time last week. 3:30 p.m. Eastern, 12:30 p.m. Pacific. We start in the bantamweight division. Luke Sanders versus the animal himself, Patrick Williams. Jed, Sanders, cool hand. Luke is a massive favorite. Not shocking, but Patrick Williams does have some power. He has pulled off upsets before. He looked all right against Tom Duquesnoy before falling in the second round last April. Do you think he has a chance, or is it going to be one-way traffic for Luke Sanders?
I am not entirely – well, first I want to say just as an addendum to this whole thing, you realize this is a 14-fight card, and it's not like they picked up some of the ones that fell off last week and just bumped them a week. These are just 14 independent fights. What the fuck happened here? Does anyone have any idea? Because that's insane.
I really have no clue, and I also question why, like, this is the first fight on the card because, I mean, I know they both are coming off, I guess, losses, and I think Sanders is coming off 2. But this is a pretty decent fight, and this could be one of the better fights on the card, to be honest.
It's a really good fight. Like, legitimately, Patrick Williams is being kind of fucked here. I don't think the odds in this are right. Patrick Williams is like a guy with a decent amount of talent. Excuse me a second. He was an Arizona State wrestler. You know, like he has a really good base in that, and has developed into an okay fighter, but he ended up he had to fight Tom Duquesnoy, who is, you know, I know he's fallen on a little bit harder of times as of late. But who upended Duquesnoy? I forgot. Somebody remind me. Cody Stamann. Yeah, Cody Stamann's good though, so that's fine. But yeah, you know, like he's a dude who can fight, but he's fighting another like super prospect than Luke Sanders. I have no idea what the hell Luke Sanders has done with his life or what's happened to him or why Andre Tsukuda knocked him out. Like that just seems like that's not a thing that should have happened. But it totally did happen, and now I have to kind of question what he's going to do. The only thing is, the way Andre Tsukuda got to Luke Sanders is not exactly what Patrick Williams is built to do. Williams is going to wrestle, and he can take advantage of that. Luke Sanders is not a super great takedown defender. He's actually like not a good takedown defender realistically, but he's active enough. He's way more active on the feet. I think he's just got more finishing ability, more ability to just kind of snatch up something on Patrick Williams. I do think the odds are too long here, but Sanders is a favorite for a reason. Give me Luke Sanders by submission.
I think that's a pretty good pick. I will say with Patrick Williams' case, the dude is one of the probably the strongest puncher in the bantamweight division, like independently. The dude has some really heavy hands, and that's why he has so many first-round finishes. That's why we saw him, I think, hurt Tom Duquesnoy in the first round, and also his wrestling is pretty good. We've seen that implemented in pretty much that fight a little bit. He got, I think, one takedown in the Duquesnoy fight, and then the Chris Beal fight, which we all saw him get knocked out by that crazy flying knee. But the thing with him is that he has really poor cardio issues because he puts so much energy into his punches and so much energy looking for those takedowns. He tends to fall quite a bit as the fights progress. That's why we've seen in both those UFC losses. He got knocked out in the second round. He just didn't have the energy sort of backing up to the cage. And I think there's only 2 of the 6 fights that he's fought. He's won if it's gone past the first round. Luke Sanders, he's been 5 rounds in there before. I think he did that with Terrion Ware. So just kind of looking at that, I don't think let's say Patrick Williams, he might be able to go out there and get a first-round finish, might be able to use that wrestling, but I think that when we look at the full aspect of the fight, if he doesn't do it, I think it's going to favor Luke Sanders as the fight goes on. For those reasons, I'm taking Luke Sanders, and I actually picked him by a second-round knockout in this one. He does have pretty heavy hands, cool hand himself, so he's going to be my pick in this one over Patrick Williams.
Going to complete the hat trick. Hockey reference, playoffs are on. Winnipeg Jets up in the playoffs already. Go Jets, go. But anyways, I do like Luke Sanders to win this fight. And I like him to win on the ground. Patrick Williams, he is a bit of a bomber. He has decent striking. Sanders probably could hang with Williams on the feet if he wanted to, but I think the where his biggest advantage is on the ground. His wrestling isn't bad. His submissions aren't bad either. Williams has fallen on the ground before, if I do recall correctly. I am very concerned about Sanders' 2-fight losing streak. He lost 2 fights that he probably shouldn't have lost. One, we saw that in the fight. He was dominating Iuri Alcantara and then fell short in the second round by a crazy come-from-behind submission. The other one was more recent in December of last year. He was knocked out by Andre Tsukuda. They fight 10 times. I'm thinking Sanders probably wins the majority of the time, but Tsukuda does hit hard enough and does have good, crisp enough striking where, hey, he might, win that fight more than I think. Nonetheless, I am going to go Sanders, but if Patrick Williams pulls off, as a guy who has been backing Sanders, in those last two fights, particularly, I won't be shocked. Williams, I've been higher on Williams than most. I remember one of my favorite picks ever on the show was me picking Alejandro Perez or Williams against Alejandro Perez. He was, Williams was a pretty major underdog in that one. And at the time, the host of the show or the other host, Daniel Levy and Gopalo, were saying, no, don't do that. And he pulls it off real quick. So I think he's a good fighter, but he's been way too inactive. Only one fight last year. Then he didn't fight at all in 2016. I think Sanders is going to get the job done here in pretty dominant fashion. Give me him by submission in round number 2. We go to we actually stay in the 135-pound division with Matthew Lopez taking on fighter I just mentioned, Alejandro Perez, who lost to Patrick Williams a few years back. Jed, you like Lopez or Perez?
I don't know. This is a fight that's like a good fight, but when we were talking about shit that could get off the card and I wouldn't care, this is one of them. Like, I understand that both of these guys are probably better than the two guys we just previously spoke about, even though Patrick Williams did submit Alejandro Perez. I think, going forward, you probably would kind of back Alejandro Perez to have a more interesting career as far as following. He did take a contentious decision over Andre Tsukuda, who, as we also mentioned, just knocked out Luke Sanders. So nice little MMA math triangle working out there for you. Anyway, the point being, I could not really care less about watching this fight, even though I think objectively it's a good fight. Also, I'm not really sure what the hell is going to happen here. Matthew Lopez is I think Alejandro Perez is better on the feet. I think Matthew Lopez is better on the ground. I think he can probably take down Alejandro Perez, and so I guess I'm going to end up siding with him. But the reality is Lopez has only really fought two good guys, and they both beat him. They both stopped him, Rafa Sunsao and Hanayaya both finished him. Whereas Alejandro Perez, I think Iuri Alcantara is a pretty good fighter. Andre Tsukuda is okay. He's fought better people and managed to get his hand raised over them in general. So it's I think it's close. I'm gonna side with Matt Lopez just because of the wrestling advantage. But I don't feel super confident to pick either way. So give me Lopez by decision.
I've been surprised with some of the wins that Alejandro Perez has picked up because I feel like a lot of the times I've picked against him. And just looking at it, I know I picked him against Iuri Alcantara, and I definitely picked against him against Andre Tsukuda, which is a close fight. I'm pretty sure there's some people who thought Tsukuda won. I remember it being pretty close. I don't know who I scored fourth, but that was a close fight. It's just Perez has sneakily got wins after I remember at one point thinking he was just not really a fighter who I felt like was going to hang around up there at the top, but he's put together some pretty impressive wins. The last two being the biggest that stand out to me. I was in Norfolk when Matthew Lopez fought Rafael Sunsao, and I felt like he hung in there pretty well. I mean, I'm at a different vantage point from being up close or watching it on TV. I thought it kind of hung in there. I remember he got a takedown in the fight, but then he got knocked out, which was ridiculous. Really cool knockout there. But I think Lopez has a decent and well-rounded skill set. We've seen him utilize, as Jed, you mentioned, his wrestling skills, but also he does have pretty heavy hands. We saw that when he knocked out Johnny Eduardo. I feel like he's a little bit more well-rounded and a little bit more competent of a fighter than Alejandro Perez, but despite the fact that Perez keeps surprising me with these wins, and he could do it again, but I'm taking Matthew Lopez in this one. I think it'll be a really close fight. I'm tempted to say split decision. I feel like it's one of those where we are going to probably have to rely on the judges, but I don't know if either is going to get a finish here. I feel like if either does, it could be Lopez maybe just getting a quick knockout like he has done a few times here and there. But Lopez, either way, is my pick. I'm going to take him by, we'll say, split decision just to make it interesting over Alejandro Perez. But as you mentioned, this is a pretty close fight, and I feel like there's just a lot of unknowns in this one.
Yeah, I mean, Alejandro Perez, kind of like you guys, is a guy I've never looked at as, this guy is going to go far, and I still don't. I definitely don't think he's going to go and be a contender, but he's hung around. I mean, he's never lost in the UFC, which is pretty incredible. No, actually, that is a lie. He lost to Patrick Williams, as I just mentioned a few minutes ago, but his last loss was way back in June 2015. He won the Ultimate Fighter follow that up with 5 straight non-losses, because he did have a draw mixed in there, but two fight winning streak for him. Andre Tsukuda, Iuri Alcantara, big, somewhat big names. I mean, decent opposition, but I think Matt Lopez, I don't know what his ceiling is. He was knocked out by Rafael Assunção in his last fight. That doesn't mean that much, because Rafael Assunção is one of the best bantamweights on the planet now. Is Matt Lopez ever going to get there? I think he has a shot. I don't think he will ultimately, gun to my head, but he's still young enough where he could make some improvements in his striking and become a pretty well-rounded mixed martial artist. His wrestling is pretty good. Perez is decent on the mat as well. Perez could be more well-rounded than Lopez, but I just think Lopez will be able to get him down to the ground. And I think on the feet, I mean, Perez could do some work, but Lopez, I feel like he is getting better in that area as well. And yeah, this is really a coin toss fight for me, but at the end of the day, Perez is a guy I've never picked in many fights. I've paid for it a lot. Maybe I will again, but I think Matt Lopez, don't know exactly why, but he just seems to be the right pick for me. So give me Matt Lopez by decision here. We go up a lot of pounds to the heavyweight division. Arjan Singh Buller taking on Adam Weiserick at heavyweight. Jed, you like Buller or Weiserick?
I like Buller because pretty obvious why. He's like the actual prospect here, and Weiserick is a guy who beat what the fuck's that dude's name? Anthony Hamilton. Is that right?
Yeah, Anthony Hamilton.
Anthony Hamilton is Anthony Hamilton. So yeah, Gabe not going to give you a shit ton on this because I don't care. And we 14 fights. We could maybe streamline some of this stuff. Yeah, Buller is a betting favorite by a pretty substantial margin for a reason. He's the actual heavyweight prospect. Adam Weiserick is not someone anybody super has high hopes for. He's a big dude. Maybe he slings him. Maybe he lands. Maybe Buller goes down. But yeah, give me Buller.
Yeah, I'm leaning the same way in this one. Buller seems to be just a little bit more well-rounded than Weiserick. I had more hope that Weiserick would do something more impressive in his UFC debut, but it didn't really back up his performances that he had back on the regional scene. The win over Anthony Hamilton just wasn't too impressive. I don't know if maybe you guys know, but did Hamilton take that fight on short notice?
I have no idea.
I could be wrong. Yeah, either way, I just felt like that wasn't a great performance. Buller looked a little bit more impressive in his UFC debut when he fought Luis Henrique, or Henrique, I should say. But I feel like Anthony Hamilton landed a couple takedowns in this one. Buller kind of relies off his takedowns here and there. I feel like Weiserick, I don't know if he's going to look too great on the feet. And I feel like he's going to lose a couple takedowns there to Arjan. So I'm going to take Buller in this one as well. I've got him by unanimous decision. I think he'll be able to utilize that wrestling and just be able to pull off a probably 30-27 victory.
Adam Weiserick is a lot bigger than Arjan as far as height and reach goes, but I actually think that favors Buller in this matchup because he is a wrestler. He is decent on the ground. That's sort of where he will show off his best skills and has the most tools. So I think Buller will be able to get Weiserick down. I can't say with relative ease, but I do think he finds his way on top of Weiserick and will do some good work from top control. Last fight in his debut against Luis Henrique, I don't think I wasn't super impressed. I thought he could have done more, but at the end of the day, the win is what fighters always go for, and so a win's a win. And also, it was his octagon debut. Maybe there were jitters. Anything else. And I'm sure he's getting better. He hasn't been around in the sport for all that long. He's only 7-0 as a pro MMA fighter. And so, I think we will see some major improvements over the next year or so. Have they happened already? We'll see. I do favor Buller here. He's a sizable betting favorite for a good reason. I think maybe it's a bit wide just because it is heavyweight, but I think Buller is a more skilled fighter, and he has more ways to win. So give me Arjan Buller. His last fight, it was a decision, right? Or a late was it a late TKO?
It was a unanimous decision.
Yeah, I'll go decision again. Buller by decision. You go down to the welterweight division. We got Diego Lima taking on Yushin Okami, who is headed back down to 170 after a short trip to 205 when he was OSP, St. Prude, whatever you want to say, against OSP himself last September. Diego Lima, Yushin Okami. Wes, I'll change things up a little bit.
I like
Who
it.
do you like?
Keeping us on our toes.
I always like it when you change things up. I think this is a pretty interesting fight because I feel like both guys just show so much inconsistency in their performances. The biggest problem with Diego Lima is basically his chin. He does not really have a chin. He's been knocked out so many times. He got rocked there in the Jesse Taylor fight before he got choked out. I remember the Ricky Rainey fight, who's going to be fighting on this card that we'll talk about soon. I thought Ricky won that fight. I thought he landed the better punches. That was a long time ago. But and then Yushin Okami, I mean, he looked okay. I mean, he had a couple wins on the regional scene, but then he comes back and he loses to Oven St. Preux, which is understandable. I mean, he went up in weight, and I think he was taking that on like a week's notice or something like that. So he got choked out in that one. But when it comes down to my pick, I was kind of back and forth on it. But in the end, I'm actually going to take Yushin Okami. I'm a little bit worried about it, but I was kind of thinking about this. I feel like Yushin Okami, the only fights that he's really lost are the fights that are against really some of the better top-tier competition. I know he did lose that fight to OSP. He lost to John Fitch and David Branch back in World Series of Fighting. They were both pretty decent names. I mean, Fitch is pretty one-dimensional, of course. David Branch, that was a 5-rounder. Pretty relies off his wrestling, which Okami lost in those. And then back in the UFC, Jacare, Anderson Silva, Chael, Tim Boetsch, I think was another one. But I think when it comes up to this fight, I feel like he might be able to get the better of Diego Lima if he avoids those takedowns, because in general, he's been pretty decent throughout his UFC career. And despite fighting guys like John Fitch and David Branch, I mean, he was able to defend quite a bit of takedowns. And I feel like if he can against Diego Lima, he can get the better of him on the feet and maybe finish him by strikes. So for that, I actually took Yushin Okami by a second-round knockout, more so because I don't trust Diego Lima's chin. But then again, if Lima can work those takedowns and he does get them and keeps him down for the majority of the rounds, I think he might be able to pull this one off. But I'm going to take Okami. Not an upset. I was actually surprised he was the favorite, but not a whole lot then. It kind of makes sense, but Okami is going to be my pick in this one. I'd like to see him get a win in the UFC again. I think it would be pretty cool.
Oh, yeah, I forgot we're going to not do the transition thing, and I'm just going to slide seamlessly in. I think it's a good pick. I think it's a smart pick. I think it's a well-reasoned pick. I'm totally not going to pick it. We're going to have our first sign of dissension on this card. If you guys know by now, I know Diego Lima. I like him. He's a good dude. I also think this is a winnable fight. Yushin Okami is really old, and he did absolutely nothing when he moved up to light heavyweight, which, granted, he was always going to lose, but he even looked bad considering, realistically. And I think that he probably can, like, if he does just wrestle a lot, he actually probably can just, like, replicate Jesse Taylor's game plan against Diego Lima. But I'm just going to back my boy. He's younger. Yushin Okami's not going to crack him on the chin. It's purely going to be, can Diego keep upright, because I don't think he can threaten off his back with anything. And I'm just going to choose to believe that he can. So give me Diego Lima by decision. Arbitrate, Nikolai.
I was just going to say, Yushin Okami has not won a UFC fight since UFC on Fuel TV 8 in Japan. That was the Silva Stand card when he beat Hector Lombard in a split decision. So that's kind of crazy. He's only had 2 UFC fights since then. He lost to Jacare and, of course, OSP. No shame in either of those fights. Yeah, I'm gonna side with Wes here. I like Yushin Okami to get the job done over Diego Lima. Not very confident. I think Okami will have the strength advantage, and stylistically, I think this favors him a little bit just because he does have some decent wrestling. He can get on top, and Diego Lima, that's one of the few areas he really falls. We saw the Jesse Taylor fight in the last one in the tough finals, and that was sort of what did it for Jesse Taylor, or did it for Lima, however you want to use that phrase. That's kind of what won Jesse Taylor the fight: get on top and eventually choke him out. I don't think Okami's going to score a finish here. I think it might look a bit closer than that fight a few months back, but I do think Okami does sort of use that game plan en route to a victory here. And also, Okami is not a big banger, especially not these days, but Lima, as Wes mentioned, his chin is not there. It hasn't for a long time. And so if Okami lands a few shots, I mean, he could hurt Lima, and that could change the fight. I'm not saying he'll knock him out. I don't think he will. I'd be surprised if he does, just because, again, Okami's, it's Okami. But just something worth mentioning. You never know. I am going to go Okami by decision. I think Lima might be able to pull around, maybe, or win around. I think maybe the first one, Okami's still warming up. Maybe not, doesn't go to the takedowns right away. So I think Lima could win the first round, perhaps, but Okami is going to win the latter too and do enough to get the judge's nod. So Yushin Okami by decision. We go down to the women's flyweight division. We got number 15, Shanna Dobson, taking on Lauren Mueller, not to be confused with Lauren Murphy. I know some picture was going around where they looked alike, but also their names are pretty similar. Mueller,
she actually
Murphy
does look a little bit like her one in
little
her
bit.
Tapology one.
Jed, I'll go back to you. Do you like Danger or Princess Tiger?
I don't have a fucking clue, man. Like, Lauren Mueller's fought 4 times. Like, who has any idea, like, if she's actually good or not? I know she's on, Dana White's Tuesday Night Contenders thing, but, like, do we have any actual idea if she can fight or not at all? Like, no. She's fought 4 times. She's been a pro for like 2 years. Shanna Dobson was on Tough, didn't get to showcase a lot because she had to run into Roxanne Modafferi, who was, one of the favorites going into the season, and Roxy beat the brakes off her in 90 seconds. She did come back on the Tough finale, got a win over somebody. I don't remember who. And
Ariel Beck.
Yeah, and she's also not been fighting for like a really long time either. She has 5 fights. Jesus, she did have at least a little bit of an amateur career behind that. But and she lost to Nico Montano, currently your flyweight champion. All right, good to know. I have no idea what the fuck's going to happen here. No one does, because neither of these women are professional fighters to the extent that you know what's going on. Like, they've been fighting for very limited time, and by nature of the fact that it's a kiddie pool thin, like shallow depth of division, they already made it here, and good for them. I hope they take advantage of it and they get better, but who the fuck knows what's going to happen. Give me, who's the betting favorite?
Dobson by a tiny bit.
Dobson by a tiny bit. That sounds like the thought process I would expect to be accurate here. And I'm just going to take it just because Dobson has, in fact, fought in the UFC and won in the UFC and just faced better competition than Mueller. So, give me Dobson, but who the fuck has any idea?
Yeah, exactly. I don't really know and don't really have a whole lot to say on this one. Pretty much for the reasons Jed said. I'm going to be I'll take Lauren Mueller in this one. It looks like the betting odds are still pretty close in general. Dobson is on one of them. I just don't have a whole lot to say. I feel like Mueller, I remember her fight back when she fought on Dana White's Contender Series, and pretty much what she did, she just kind of clinched and looked for takedowns. And I feel like that's going to be the area that Dobson struggles with. Dobson relies quite a bit off her punches, and that's pretty much it. Doesn't look a lot for takedowns, doesn't look a lot for the clinch. And Mueller clinches quite a bit, so I'm feeling like Mueller might be able to utilize that. So Mueller's going to be my pick. I'm going to take her by, I guess, a unanimous decision. I feel like she'll just try to clinch up there against the cage and try to ride out Dobson to get a victory here. But then again, who knows?
I'm going Shanna Dobson. I don't know why, and you guys shouldn't care. We have 9 more fights to get to, so let's speed up the process. Shanna Dobson by decision. I guess she might be able to win by TKO. She did last time, but hey, Shanna Dobson by decision, and that is all I got on this one. Let's move on to the final Fight Pass prelim. We got Dilbert Dorino Burns taking on short notice replacement newcomer Dan Moraga, 13-3. Seems to be a submission guy, kind of like Gilbert Burns. Might be a fun grappling fight. Might just be a quick submission for Gilbert Burns. Jed, as you're doing that, why don't you let us know about this fight?
Man.
Gilbert Burns wins pretty quickly, right?
Come on, yeah, look, if Dan Moritz is gonna try and fucking grapple Gilbert Burns, he's a world champion jiu-jitsu player. Dan Moritz is gonna get fucking put up in a pretzel with the serious quickness here. Like you're right, he is a submission dude, and he has no avenues to victory here. This fight would have been way, way better when it was the Lando Venata fight that it was supposed to be. But, sometimes things don't happen for whatever reason. And now instead we have this fight that nobody needs or gives a shit about seeing. So, yeah, Gilbert Burns with an early submission.
Honestly, I have nothing else to add, and that's pretty much because I know nothing about Dan Moraga. The only thing I saw was actually when I was looking at Luke Sanders' record. Luke Sanders beat him once. And I think Gilbert Burns
Luke Sanders beat him?
I think just by decision. Yeah, just by decision. Back at RFA 13, Cody Cochran versus Efrain Escudero was man. So a little while ago. Don't know really anything about Dan Moraga. Gilbert Burns, he lost to Michel Prezes and Rashid Magomedov, two really good fighters. And but he's beat also Alex Oliveira, crazy fight. Alex was winning. He came back and won. Just his wins over better competition. And like Nick and Jed said, Dan Moraga seems to be a submission guy. Gilbert Burns is the submission guy. And for those reasons, I'm taking Gilbert Burns by a second-round submission.
Nothing else to add. Gilbert Burns will beat the grappler and Dan Moraga, I guess. I mean, if Dan Moraga, what he's good at is grappling, Gilbert Burns is better. I can say that without knowing who Dan Moraga is. So give me Gilbert Burns by submission in round number 2. And let's move on to the Fox prelims. 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. We got middleweight fight between number 13 Krzysztof Jotko and number 15 Brad Tavares. Jotko right now is a slight underdog. Tavares favored ever so slightly by the odds makers. Jed, do you agree with that? Are you going with the Hawaiian and Brad Tavares, or do you think Jotko gets back on track?
These guys are the same fucking fighter. This is the same fighter. They just do the same things. They're like cardio kickboxing, and they're relatively well rounded, and they're going to throw a decent amount of volume and pressure. Like this is, I don't like how do you pick? Like how do you pick between the two of them? I seriously have no fucking idea. So I'm going to make my decision based purely on the fact that at one point I have never believed in Brad Tavares to be anything other than exactly who he is. Or at one point I thought Krzysztof Jotko should have beaten Dave Branch. How did that work out? That's a split decision. I don't remember that fight. Did he get screwed?
I mean, Branch landed a couple takedowns in there. They had about the same volume on the feet. I felt like Jotko landed the better punches. It was pretty close, but I feel like it could have been like, one of those fights you could have scored either way, and you would have been like, well, oh well.
Huh. Well, I did not have a score for it, but it feels, I don't know, that feels, just looking at it, that feels like Krzysztof Jotko should beat David Branch.
You for 1 second?
Yeah, absolutely. You can always interrupt.
Completely unrelated note, but the funniest thing I've seen all night, Paul Felder is now a ranked lightweight.
Did they just do rankings?
Yep. Number 14.
Man. I'm so excited about this. That's freaking incredible.
Olivia Murphy also made number 15.
Oh, good for Olivia.
So I guess who left? Evan Dunham and Beneil Dariush. Wow, Beneil Dariush gone from the rankings.
Did he leave a while ago, though, when he got knocked out by whatever his name is?
Number 14, number 15, I think he just got out now.
But they didn't rank Alex Hernandez or whatever?
Nope, he is.
Alex Hernandez was ranked last week.
Oh, how about that?
Yeah.
Also,
you may notice Tony Ferguson is not your interim champion anymore.
Yep.
How about that?
Which, hey, you never know. Don't always tell the full story.
Yeah. Anyway, the point being, I mean, like both of these guys decisioned Talis Leites recently. Brad Tavares got his shit pushed in by Robert Whittaker, which isn't like the worst thing that's ever happened. Basically, here's my breakdown. Brad Tavares has fought he's fought like 4 good fighters, and he's beaten one of them. I guess 5 if you count Lorenz Larkin, though Lorenz Larkin's a good welterweight, not a good middleweight. But the only good fighter he's beaten is Talis Leites, and he did that last year, which is roughly when Talis Leites is 100 years old. And Krzysztof Jotko has fought two good fighters and lost to both of them, though he arguably beat Dave Branch. So who the fuck has any idea? I think this is literally a mirror match. They are the same people, just with different names. I'm going to take Krzysztof Jotko because he has a little bit of a reach advantage and because he is a southpaw. But other than that, this has split decision written all the fuck over it. So don't bet money on this because anything could happen. Unless one of them moves to enormous plus money, then throw it down because shit, it's a coin flip. But yeah, give me Jotko.
I like the pick. I'm taking Jotko too and I actually said I use MMA Playground for my picks too, which is an old school fantasy website. I picked actually Jotko by split decision. So
this is definitely a split decision.
It's literally a split decision fight.
Split decision in my life. Like I've never seen a clear split decision.
These two go to decision quite a bit. And then Brad Tavares also never gets finished. And if he wins, he never finishes anybody. Besides, I guess Robert Whittaker beat him. He knocked him out, but that's Robert Whittaker being Robert Whittaker. Besides that, I mean, I really don't think either one's going to finish each other. I think the only reason I'm picking Jotko for two reasons. One, I feel like he's the bigger guy, which you kind of mentioned. I feel like that reach is going to be able to help him out. And also, I think his output is pretty decent. And then secondly, he's an underdog. So I felt like I kind of needed an underdog. He's not big by any margins. I also say I'll throw in a third one. I felt like Jotko looked better in the Tallest Lightsys fight. I'm a pretty big Tallest Lightsys fan, but I thought he looked better in that fight. I know that was a year and a half ago, but then Brad Tavares did in that fight, which just happened back in October. So just for those reasons, I'm going to take Jotko, but I actually do have a split decision. I feel like if any fight we're going to see on this card goes to one, this is going to be a fight. So I think I guess I picked two split decisions on this card. So if they both go to the other one was I think Matthew Lopez Perez. I could be wrong, but that would be pretty cool if I actually do that because it's hard. It's really hard to pick split decisions. But if you're going to pick any, this is going to be your fight. But Jotko is my pick over Brad Tavares.
It's a classic middleweight matchup according to guys like Phil McKenzie. Two guys that are kind of, as Jed said, cardio kickboxers. Both can go the distance. Both are decent on the feet. Brad Tavares arguably has more ways to win because him outpointing Jotko on the feet wouldn't be the most shocking thing we've seen. But he also has decent wrestling, sort of. He's a bit of a grinder. He could get on top of Jotko, and I wouldn't be shocked. But Jotko is decent on the ground. We saw that in the Tallest Ladies fight. Him basically out-grappling Ladies, who is a decent grappler himself. That was very surprising to me when that happened. I mean, at the time, Jotko, him winning the fight, no matter how, was a little surprising. But here, it's an interesting matchup, and it's going to be interesting to see how Jotko does come off 2 straight losses, including a come-from-behind knockout loss to Uriah Hall in his last outing. Brad Tavares, on the other hand, on a bit of a roll, on a winning streak, so kind of an odd matchup, but I guess it does make some sense. Both guys are really close rankings-wise. I'm going to favor Jotko. I think he's the better striker, and with the reach, I think he's going to be able to bust Brad Tavares up on the feet. Before Jotko lost to David Branch and Paul, I was really impressed with him. I still am. I think he can do some things at middleweight. I know there was a time before his recent setbacks that I was saying he could beat Michael Bisping, who at the time was the champion. I still believe he probably could, but I don't know if he'll ever be, in the top 5. But I think he does have the tools to get, right up there, higher than where he is at right now, number 13. So give me Jotko by decision. I think he gets the better of Brad Tavares on the feet, and I don't think we see many ground exchanges in this one. Speaking of ground exchanges, I do think we'll see a lot in this one. Wilson Haste versus John Moraga in the flyweight division, or we'll just see kind of a poor man's striking battle, which, hey, might happen. Jed, Haste or Moraga?
I don't think we're going to see a poor man's striking battle at all. John Moraga is bad at defending takedowns, and Wilson Haste is not a bad wrestler. And that's going to be my very advanced breakdown of it. Wilson Haste wrestles his ass off, and John Moraga is not really good at not doing that. He'll try and create scrambles, but he's not going to out-scramble Wilson Haste, so he's going to have his ass planted to the mat a whole lot. And I think Wilson Hayes should frankly be a bigger favorite than he is. I think Wilson Hayes is a pretty easy pick here. The only, even on the feet, I think he is comparable to John Moraga. I don't think either man is going to have a huge advantage on the feet, and I think Wilson Hayes definitely has an advantage in the wrestling and on the floor. So give me Wilson Hayes.
I like that pick, but I'm actually going to be taking the upset in this one. I'm taking John Moraga for a couple reasons. I know Wilson Hayes is coming off 2 losses, and they're the huge freaking names, Henry Cejudo and Demetrius Johnson. Easily 2 of the biggest flyweights pretty much in the division. But the beating that he took in those 2, I feel like that might play some kind of a factor, especially in his upcoming performances. Well, then you have on the flip side, John Moraga. The Askin Mokhtarian fight was pretty decent. He had a really good performance in that, especially on the feet. And then he goes out there and knocks out Magomed Bibulatov, who I thought Magomed was just going to absolutely demolish him. And Moraga showed some pretty crafty handwork in that one, and I was pretty impressed by that performance. He does show a lot of holes in his takedown defense, but I feel like if that's all he really works on in this fight camp, I really feel like he's going to be able to have the advantage against Wilson Hayes. And I don't really know how Hayes is going to look with landing ground and pound. I feel like a lot of the times he just kind of holds on and tries to look for the submissions. But Moraga occasionally is pretty good at defending them. So I'm going to take Moraga just because I feel like if he can keep this one on the feet, that's definitely where he's going to excel. And if somehow he does scramble up, I feel like that's just going to be the area that he does a little bit better in. And I just kind of wonder about how Hayes is going to be dealing with all that pretty much just crazy damage that he's taken the last 2 fights. Plus, he's kind of getting old in his fight game more so than his actual age. I feel like his fight game, he's still younger than John Moraga, but I feel like he's been in a lot of fights. And I feel
is he really younger than John Moraga?
By like 2 years, I think.
Holy
he's
shit.
younger. It's crazy, but it feels like Hayes has been. I think it's just Moraga had such a late start in his career, while Hayes is
looking face too.
But
Wilson Hayes' face just looks old.
Exactly, he looks like he's a 40-year-old dude who probably
doesn't help that he just rocks the fucking old man mustache either. Probably
the stash that adds a few years to it. But John Moraga is gonna. I'll take him. I'm not 100% confident in this one, but I felt like if I'm going to pick an underdog, I might as well take a risk there in the flyweight division because Moraga's looked pretty decent in these past couple fights. Maybe he's making improvements. I think this will be a good test to see if he's actually making improvements in his game or if he still has the same holes in his takedown defense and it's just going to be back to kind of the same old style that he was before. But if he does fix some things, I think Moraga's going to be able to take this one. So he's going to be my pick by a unanimous decision.
Excuse me. Yeah, I'm gonna go with the side with Jed's pick here. I like Wilson Hayes in this one as well. Basically, I did mention that hey, 2 grapplers, this could end up being a poor man's kickboxing bout. I don't think it will be. I think we'll see some pretty awesome grappling exchanges, but ultimately, as Jed alluded to, Moraga has struggled defending takedowns. Hayes is good on top. He's good at getting guys down to the floor. From there, Moraga might be able to do some work as far as scrambling and getting out of bottom control or bottom position and getting into a better position. But ultimately, I think Haste is the more sound grappler, if that makes any sense. I feel like Moraga might be a bit more, not flashy, because he's not really a flashy fighter. He's actually a pretty gritty fighter, but he's kind of wild on the ground, sort of. I mean, he finds things that not everybody does, and I think Haste is a bit more, forward thinking, sort of control your opponent until he gives up something a bit more obvious. He doesn't go hunting as much as maybe Moraga does, but sometimes that isn't the best strategy to sort of not go for broke, but just take more chances, I think is what I'm getting at. So I like Wilson Hayes. I like him to I guess a decision. I think Moraga is good enough to defend off submissions for 15 minutes, and I don't think this will be like Damian Maia versus Matt Brown, where Maia is literally in control for the entire fight until finally choking him out late. I do think Moraga will have his moments, but I think Hayes has more of them. So give me Hayes by decision. We move on to the welterweight division. We got Muslim Salikov taking on newcomer. Stepping up on short notice, Ricky the Sniper Rainey. I know Wes mentioned him earlier. He fought who way back when.
Diego Lima, and it was a really bad decision. Rainey should have won that one.
I remember Ricky Rainey from Bellator. I think I remember him from losing to Michael Van Den Page. Does that sound right?
Yeah, and also I think Njokuani.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking of, but I guess both. Anyways, we'll go to West this one. Do you like the King of Kung Fu or the Sniper?
I like Ricky Rainey. I feel like he's a pretty underrated fighter, and I feel like he could do some stuff in the UFC. He's got a pretty decent striking game. Didn't show a whole lot in the Michael Page fight, and then the Njokuani fight. I'm pretty sure Njokuani is just a little bit better on the feet and landed a couple takedowns in there too. But I'm going to take Muslim Salikov in this one. I picked him in the Garcia fight, which, Jed, you actually had a really good pick. You were the only person between us to pick Alex Garcia in that one, I remember. And Garcia was able to get the win because Salikov just didn't really have the experience, I guess, with fighters that try to look for takedowns. But the reason I'm taking Salikov is because I know Rainey's going to be the fighter that's going to want to stand on the feet and trade. He's not going to be really looking for a whole lot of takedowns because striking has always been an area he's been pretty decent in. And he's got a pretty decent Muay Thai game. I've seen him land some pretty good knees in some fights where he's been able to drop some fighters. But if he's going to stand and trade with Salikov, Salikov is just, I mean, he's got some crazy, crazy credentials in his stand-up game. I think he did kickboxing for a long time and had a really impressive record in that. I don't know what else he's done. Muay Thai, just a bunch of different things. I think Salikov is going to be able to get the victory here by knockout. Also seeing that Rainey's been knocked out twice. Salikov's never been finished by strikes where Rainey succeeds. So Salikov is going to be my pick by a first-round knockout. Also seeing that Rainey took this fight on short notice.
Remember when we were talking about fights that could be got out of this card or save us all time of our life? This is one of them. Give me Salikov. Don't really care.
I actually think this could be a bit of fun. Ricky Rainey, he's a striker. Muslim Salikov, pretty vicious on the feet. I think this could be some fun, but ultimately on a 14-fight card, yeah, I mean, if we're going to say let 5 go, this probably ends up in that bash.
No, probably about it. This is gone if we're cutting 5.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. That's well, you know what? I could find 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, this probably is number 4 or 5. So sorry, guys, but I'm gonna go with Salikov. I think he hits hard on his feet. He's not, he had a full camp. I don't know. I feel like he has a bit more potential than Ricky Rainey. We've seen Rainey before. We've seen him lose. I know we've seen Salikov lose, but I don't know. Alex Garcia has done some things. Ricky Rainey stepping up on short notice, the debut. He's a striker. He's maybe more flashy than Salikov, but I think Salikov has better fundamentals. So give me Salikov here. Let's go decision, but if he knocks Rainey out cold, I won't be all that shocked. We move on to the final prelim. Almost there. Tim Boetsch, Antonio Carlos Jr. in the middleweight division. Jed, do you like Shoeface, or does the Barbarian turn back the clock yet again and score an upset?
I don't think it's called turning back the clock. It's just called being Tim Boetsch. Like, he just has a knack.
Those two phrases go hand in hand. You're either
he just has a knack for knocking people the fuck out, like that he's supposed to lose to. It's just like a thing that he does. I would assume that this is a bridge too far because Shoeface is pretty good at fighting, and sometimes Shoeface fucks around a little, but usually when he figures it out and then gets a takedown and then does his job. Tim Boetsch is not a bad defender of takedowns. If he can stay upright, he's certainly got a good chance here. I do think the striking probably favors him, but I think Shoeface is not without weapons on the feet. I think he's way longer. He can do some things, and it's just as long as he can get the takedowns, he's definitely going to be fine. But I'm actually fairly interested to see if he can, because Tim Boetsch isn't a great wrestler, but he's a solid enough one. So it's at least a good kind of progressive step for Shoeface. But at the end of the day, I think Antonio Carlos Jr. is going to do the damn thing. He's going to get the takedown. He's going to lock up some type of cheeky submission, a la what Luke Rockhold got on Timmy Boetsch, something like that, something cool and dope. So give me Antonio Carlos Jr. second round submission.
I've got Antonio Carlos Jr. as well in this one, and I picked the decision. But then again, that kind of worries me because from what I remember, I mean, ACJ got finished by Dan Kelly there in the third round. I feel like I was going to say I feel like his cardio slows down, but then again, I think back when he fought, like, I don't – who was it? Patrick Cummins? I mean, it's Cummins, but he still had a pretty decent last round where he did show some momentum. And these past couple fights, he's looked pretty decent and had a pretty decent victory there over Marvin Vettori, who's also on this card we'll talk about soon. Eric Spotslier and then Jack Marshman. So he's riding a 4-fight win streak, which is super impressive. But Tim Boetsch sometimes just pulls it out of the hat when you don't expect it. And I feel like there's a good chance he could in this one. Man, I really don't know. I'm going to stick with my pick. I'm going to say Antonio Carlos Jr. is going to get the victory by decision. But Boetsch, if he stuffs those takedowns, I think he's going to present some holes that might really play against Antonio Carlos Jr. But I'm going to stick with what I got. I have a unanimous decision. But Tim Boetsch might appear on my DraftKings team. I'm not 100% sure. I'm still trying to put it together, but we'll find that out soon enough.
Ultimately, gotta agree. Give me Antonio Carlos Jr., the Brazilian. In this one, he's younger. He has a lot more upside than Tim Boetsch. Tim Boetsch, he is coming off that knockout win over Johnny Hendricks back in June, but in 2017, beating Johnny Hendricks, not really a big win. And so I don't know what to take away from that other than the fact that Tim Boetsch isn't 100% done. He can win fights, and that's good to know going into this one. But Carlos Jr. is just going to tear him apart on the mat. This is a pretty clear fight. I mean, I know that if Tim Boetsch manages to keep this standing, he'll win the fight. Antonio Carlos Jr. isn't, that great of a striker by any means. He wins on the ground, and that's where he impresses and does well, and that's okay. If Tim Boetsch keeps it standing, he'll probably win, but that's what this fight comes down to, and I sure don't think he'll keep it standing. Shoeface, I've doubted him earlier on, but he's on a roll right now. He's looking better than he ever has. That's understandable considering he is, how old is he? 28, 29? That's just he's 28. So I mean, he's hitting his prime right now. He's hitting his peak.
And you guys remember when you both picked Eric Spicely to beat Antonio Carlos Jr.?
Oh no, I did that. I've done very dumb things on this show before. That is one of them.
I will say I'm glad I picked him. I'm glad I picked him by decision and didn't pick him by a submission.
It's just one of those things I'm going to remind y'all about every time he fights.
I guess I will be going
wild.
I was thinking about it, and I was like, man, he hasn't brought it up yet. I was like, when is that going to happen? Is he going to forget? No, he did not forget.
Okay, so I guess I have to change my pick to Tim Boetsch by like rear naked choke or something, because that makes sense according to my logic when it comes to shoe-face fights. But nonetheless, I will go with the big betting favorite here in the Brazilian shoe-face, Antonio Carlos Jr., to lock up some sort of submission on the veteran Tim Boetsch in round number 2. With that, let's move on to the 4-fight Fox main card. 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We kick things off in the strawweight division. Michelle the Karate Hottie Watterson taking on Courtney Cast Iron Casey. Pretty interesting fight. Number 7 versus number 10. Important fight for the division, although both fighters are coming off losses. It will sort of determine who goes ahead from here. Jed, you like Watterson, the slight underdog, which might surprise some people, or Courtney Casey?
I don't know. It's a really tough fight to call. Courtney Casey has improved by leaps and bounds. Michelle Watterson seems to have basically plateaued, which is sort of what you'd expect this long into her career. The fact that she's fighting up sort of in a weight class and just kind of, and just by virtue of the fact that she's had to fight better women. Like she had to fight Rose Namajunas, who is now your champion, and Tisha Torres, who would, if she got a title shot, would not be undeserving of a title shot just right now. She won't get a title shot because Jessica Andrade should pretty obviously have that next one locked up. But, she's lost to 2 of the 5 best fighters in the division. So that's kind of a rough beat for her. But the fact of the matter is Courtney Casey has looked very good, but has come up short against kind of the better fighters she's faced. Felice Herrig and Claudia Yadelja got the job done. She does have good wins over Randa Marcos and Jessica Aguilar, but Jessica Aguilar is not the fighter she used to be. She's not the or at least she shouldn't be respected to the degree that she used to be. She actually might be the same fighter, but the divisions got better and she's kind of stagnated. But the point remains is really that for all the improvement Courtney Casey's made, she hasn't really improved her wrestling a ton. And that is a bit of a problem here, because while Michelle Waterson is the karate hottie, what she actually ends up doing more often than not is getting into the clinch and like working trip takedowns to like really good effect. And Courtney Casey has just given up a shitload of takedowns. Claudia Gaethje took her down like I think 300 times. I might maybe off by a couple, but it was a lot. Jessica Aguilar, even though like she lost, she still managed to get takedowns in I think every round. And so I think Waterston can probably be effective with that, but is this going to be like the Jessica Aguilar fight where she gets takedowns and still loses because on the feet, Courtney Casey is going to be just kind of piecing her up with more powerful strikes? I don't know. I think Michelle Waterston can probably is probably going to do better than Jessica Aguilar does on the feet, and maybe can do better than Jessica Aguilar on the mat. But at the same time, she is going to be so massively outsized in the clinch where she usually gets her takedowns from that maybe Courtney Casey can just kind of muscle her off everything. I'm really interested in what's going to happen in this fight. I do not have a great read on it, frankly. In the end, I might end up changing my pick on this. I'm just going to be honest. I'm going to side with Courtney Casey just because I do feel that she is, kind of on the rise, and Michelle Waterston is at least flat, if not maybe making a little bit of a decline here. Very possible I end up changing my mind by fight night, because I do think Casey's defensive wrestling issues are a real concern here for me. But I'm just going to take the rocket ship going up. Usually my strategy. It worked out well for me last week when I picked against Evan Dunham and Joe Lozon. So I'm going to do it again, pick Courtney Casey by decision.
I think that's a good pick. It is a pretty close fight, and I've been back and forth on it. And it's because we see Michelle Waterston. She's a fighter who does not have a lot of output on the feet, does not look for a lot of punches, and is able to get takedowns. Doesn't really have the best takedown defense herself, to be honest. But then you have Courtney Casey, who has outstanding output, but her takedown defense is poor. I'm taking Courtney Casey in this one because of a few different reasons. The first reason you actually hinted on, Jed, was her size. I think the size is going to give Michelle Waterston some problems. Secondly, Waterston does land takedowns. Of course, Casey gives up takedowns sometimes, but she's very active off her back. She's also crafty with her submission games off her back. I'm not saying she will submit Michelle Waterston, but I'm saying the activity, if we do see these go past the rounds or at least complete a round, it might favor Casey because Waterston doesn't really do a whole lot. She kind of looks for submissions. The third reason is because when it comes to on the feet, Courtney Casey is super active. I looked at the stats. Casey has landed, 254 more punches than Michelle Waterston, and she's attempted in one fight more 730 more punches. So her activity is really, really significant. And I think, as you mentioned, if she can muscle Waterston off and also get back on the feet in these fights, I really think it's going to give Waterston problems, especially as the fight goes on, because Casey also, she does pretty decent. And as we see those later rounds, Waterston, she seems to kind of slow down a little bit. So I'm going to take Courtney Casey in this one. I'll give Michelle Waterston the first round, but I think the second and third are going to favor Casey. I like her activity. I like her activity off the back as well, besides the stand-up game. And for all those reasons, I think she might be able to pull off a decision victory here. Maybe something impressive. Maybe she could get a knockout. She's pretty – or maybe some kind of crazy like arm bar off her back. I think that would be pretty cool, kind of like what she did to Randa Marcos. But an interesting fight here. Either way, Courtney Casey is going to be my pick.
Oh, it's very worrisome that we're all going Courtney Casey. She is the betting favorite. I am surprised about that, and I figured at least one and maybe two of us were going to go with Waterston. But hey, I guess we all have the same read. It'll probably be wrong. I am going cast iron here simply because she is so much bigger and so much stronger than her counterpart in Michelle Waterston in this fight. She has 5 inches of reach, 5 inches 4 inches of height. But the thing is, it comes down to the strength. Waterson is good in the clinch, but will she be nearly as good in the clinch against a large strawweight as a small strawweight? No, she won't be. Will she be able to outstrike Courtney Casey like she outstrikes a lot of her opponents? No, she won't. Will she be able to take Courtney Casey down and submit her like she does with some of her opponents? No, she won't. I just don't know how Waterson deals with this size advantage or disadvantage. She in basically all of her fights, especially in the UFC when she's a strawweight, I guess only at 115 in the UFC, she's been dealing with size disadvantages, but I think this one might be the biggest she's had to deal with. So I'm very it's a very intriguing matchup in that regard, and it's one of the closest fights on the entire card on paper, just because at the end of the day, Michelle Waterson's probably the more skilled fighter. She's more well-rounded. Courtney Casey, I feel like her wrestling has gotten better, but it does need a bit of work, and her striking could use some work. But once Casey does get on top, if she is in a dominant position, she's pretty brutal. She's a good fighter, and she's able to tap you out or just pound you out with strikes. She's a very gritty fighter. She's so tough, and I think that's an advantage over Waterson. Ultimately, I just think she's going to be able to bully Michelle Waterson and probably get her down, actually, and use her strength to her advantage. If it stays on the feet, there's a chance Waterson's able to outpoint her, but I'm not super confident. So I think Casey actually has more ways to win, kind of. Waterson does in the sense that she's more well-rounded, but again, it comes down to the size. I hate saying it so many times, but I think it's a point that needs to be stressed. So I'm going to go Courtney Casey here by a close, unanimous decision, maybe a split. We move to the middleweight division with a very fun fight at 185 pounds. 2 prospects. One is a lot more hyped up right now than the other. One is a lot more talked about, but hey, there's a guy named Marvin Vettori that is looking to play spoiler in Israel Adesanya's second UFC bout. The last style bender taking on the Italian Dream. Wes, I'll change things up and go back to you. First, do you like the Nigerian fighter or the Italian fighter?
Man, I honestly don't know. And the reason I don't know is because both these guys are young. I'm trying to look at their age. I know Marvin Vettori is 24. I guess Adesanya is 28, a little bit older. They both have had pretty impressive careers thus far, especially Marvin Vettori, because, I mean, he's so young, but he's been able to get victories over pretty decent guys. Igor Araujo, he got one over him back in 2016. I mean, he's not great, but still, that's a pretty decent win for being so young. His submission skills and takedowns are pretty effective. Antonio Carlos Jr., I'm pretty sure he had a solid round in that fight. And then Omari Akhmedov, that was a draw, pretty wild fight there. And Adesanya, we saw some holes there in his takedown defense when he fought Rob Wilkinson, but Wilkinson's not that great. But he was able to get a really impressive victory, and he looked fantastic there on the regional scene. Had a bunch of different victories, and plus his style, the style bender, I mean, he's crazy good on the feet. When it comes down to a pick, I'm picking Adesanya, and that's because I feel like he's going to be able to be the more effective striker. But it is a risk, and I feel like a lot of people are writing Vettori off just because we see how good Adesanya is. But Vettori is a pretty durable dude for the most part, and he also is effective at getting takedowns and also getting submissions. So there's a good chance Vettori could go out there, land an early takedown, and if Adesanya really doesn't know what to do off his back, he might make a careless error, and Vettori gets a submission choke by probably rear naked. So there is that chance, but I'm hoping Adesanya has learned from that UFC debut, also has checked out the style of Marvin Vettori, and knows how to defend those takedowns. And if he can, he's definitely going to be able to get victory there by just having the advantage on the feet. And also seeing how Marvin Vettori didn't land any in the fight with Omari Akhmedov, and Akhmedov does not really have the best takedown defense himself. I think that, I don't know, maybe he just was trying to keep it on the feet to show off the striking skills. I really don't know if he's going to be able to get the job done here. Adesanya also has the experience advantage. I think those are all going to play in a factor for him. For those reasons, I'm taking Adesanya by a second-round knockout. I think Vettori might be able to land a couple takedowns there in the first, but I think that he might get tired, kind of as we saw in the Antonio Carlos Jr. fight, and Adesanya is going to be able to get the victories there. So he's my pick over Marvin Vettori.
Yeah, this is a lamb to slaughter. I don't think much of Marvin Vettori. I think he's fine. He's a perfectly fine fighter. That's it. Like I don't think he's a prospect other than the fact that he's young and he's a fine fighter. This is a dude who's gonna be Christoph Jocko. Like he's just gonna be maybe cracks into the lower end of the top 15 of the division. He's never going to contest for a title. Israel Adesanya is super dope and super violent, and Marvin Vettori is not a good enough wrestler to – like Marvin Vettori is going to have to strike with him, and then he is going to be fucked. So, yeah, Israel Adesanya is going to do something wildly violent, and you should definitely tune into this fight because it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, gotta agree. On the pick is Israel Adesanya, but I do think a bit more of Marvin Vettori than Jed appears to. I don't think he's ever going to be a top contender. I don't think he's ever going to be a champion, although he is young or young-ish. He is getting better. Kings MMA has done decent things for him, I think. Moving to California full-time has done good things, but ultimately we're looking at a guy who in Israel Adesanya that I do think could be right up there with the upper echelon of the middleweight division, as long as he doesn't, have major holes in his ground game, which we think he might, but that's how you beat Israel Adesanya, but we don't know. I mean, he could be already a decent wrestling, defensive wrestler. We really don't know. His last opponent didn't test him that much. Did he actually take Adesanya down? I know he clinched with him a little bit, got him up against the fence. I don't know. Did Wilkinson actually land a takedown? I'm thinking he didn't, but
I thought he landed like one or two, but yeah, maybe I could be wrong.
I honestly don't remember. I was more paying attention to the second round when Adesanya, of course, did great work on the feet and knocked him out. This is going to be a very one-sided fight when it's on the feet, but stylistically, I don't think this was the greatest fight to make for Adesanya's second fight in the UFC. Are you looking at the Holly Holm Megan Addison fight? Yeah.
That can't be right. That can't be right.
Anyways,
that's a fight.
Yeah, it is.
It's being reported. It's as in the works.
Right.
I don't buy it. Also, I don't trust.
But
man, that says January. One tweet that says January 18th. What the heck?
Well, you're definitely looking at the wrong thing. But anyways, I think on the feet, Adesanya is going to tear Vettori apart. But I don't think this was the greatest matchup or the smartest matchup. If Adesanya is the guy they want to hype up, which they should want to, we don't know, but they should. Because Vettori does have a bit of a ground game. He is a bit of a grinder. And I feel like he could, pull something off. And at the very least, I think he can make this a bit of a closer fight than we all think it will be. And even Adesanya going to the judges isn't great for his career this early. I mean, it's not going to ruin his career or derail the hype train, but it would have been smarter to put him up against lesser strikers and let him pick up this amazing highlight reel over the next, year or so. So I don't think this was the smartest booking, but nonetheless, it's the fight we got. I think Adesanya still pulls it off, but I actually think he'll win a decision. Vettori seems to have a pretty good chin, and even a striker like Adesanya, I feel like Vettori will be able to stall the fight enough where Adesanya outpoints him on the feet, but doesn't land that knockout blow. So give me Israel Adesanya here by decision, but perhaps surprisingly, not a knockout. We move to the Glendale co-main event. It is Carlos Condit versus Alex Oliveira in the welterweight division. Jed, you like the natural-born killer, the former interim champion, the former title challenger, or does the Brazilian cowboy get back into the winning column?
This fight's bullshit. They shouldn't have made this fight. Like, they really just shouldn't have. The Matt Brown fight made sense and was awesome. And when Matt Brown got hurt, this is bad news bears. Best case scenario, Alex Oliveira takes Carlos Condit down a bunch and rides out to a decision. Worst case scenario, Carlos Condit has always relied on his chin more than most, and that worked because he's had legitimately one of, if not the actual best chin in the history of the sport. At worst, top 5 best chins ever in the sport. That chin's pretty cracked now. I think Robbie Lawler took a piece of that, and then his last fight against who did he fight?
Magny.
Yeah, Neil Magny. That's right. He just didn't pull the trigger at all in that fight. He could have won it, but he didn't, and Like, Alex Oliveira is not going to let him not pull the trigger, and he can take him down, and it's just bad. Like, it's just a bad fight for him. So it's a shame. Carlos Condit is one of my all-time favorite fighters. BJ Penn was like my first favorite fighter, and then as BJ kind of started needing to retire, even if he didn't, Carlos Condit sort of moved into that place. And now it's a shame that he is where he is, but such is the way of this very, very cruel sport we watch. Alex Oliveira is probably going to knock him out in super violent, shitty fashion. That's what's likely going to happen. Give me Alex Oliveira with a stoppage.
Yeah, I want to pick Carlos Condit in this one, but it's just, it's so hard to pick. His last win was in May of 2015. The Robbie Lawler fight, of course, everybody thought Condit won that one. It was pretty close. And then the last two fights, he just didn't pull the trigger. And I feel like a lot of the times that Condit loses fights are the times that fighters get in his face and land that volume. And Alex Oliveira is going to be, as you mentioned, Jed, consistently in his face, landing that volume. Condit just doesn't – he seems to kind of struggle in those situations, especially recently. Of course, Dan Hardy, throwing volume, and he was able to get a knockout there. But that was so long ago. We got to look at the now. And, neither really seem to get the victories in the times that they, need to get the win. I feel like they kind of – I don't want to say choke it away. I just feel like they could perform better. It goes with Alex Oliveira, the Cowboy fight. He just got taken down and choked out. The last fight he had with Nancy Medeiros, which was great. One of the best fights in 2017 and one of the best fights in the weight class history. But he ended up getting finished there in a fight where I felt like if he took it a little more conservatively, he probably could have won. Condit, of course, the last fight with Neil Magny, he didn't pull the trigger. He did land some more punches, but he got taken out all the time and just couldn't do anything. And let pretty much Magny take him down. Didn't really defend any of the takedowns, try to at least. I feel like Alex Oliveira is just going to be able to get the better of the punches and also be able to utilize his wrestling skills, and for those reasons, get the victory. So I did have Oliveira by a second-round knockout, but I changed it to a decision because Condit is still pretty durable. But then again, Oliveira is a really, really heavy hitter. He could maybe get a finish early. If Condit's going to win, it's going to probably be some kind of late finish by some kind of combo or something. I don't know. Oliveira, I think, is going to be able to get the job done here. So I picked him by decision over Carlos Condit. It could be a pretty good fight, but that's, I think, if Condit pulls the trigger, which I don't think he will. Either way, Oliveira is going to be my pick in this one.
Yeah, I got to go Alex Oliveira here as well. And I wish we were getting Conor Brown, not only just because that'd be a hell of a fight, but it just makes a lot more sense because Matt Brown is as done as Carlos Condit, and that was a winnable fight for both. And so here, Condit could pull off the upset, but I have to go with the Brazilian Cowboy here. He is too tough. He is too heavy-handed. He is too good of a grappler. He's too just kind of everything. And I guess on the other side, Carlos Condit is just not enough in 2018. He's shop worn. He's washed up. He's doing other things. He's basically done, which sucks because he was such a great fighter. Not even that long ago. The Robbie Lawler-Carlos Condit fight was one of the best we've ever seen. That was only 2 years ago, just over.
The best fight of all time.
I disagree with that, but I don't even think that was the fight of the year, but I'm in the minority there.
What in God's name was a better fight that year? Don't you dare spit that horseshit McGregor-Diaz nonsense.
No. That was even worse. Or not worse, but lower.
It was a worse fight.
Yeah, okay, fair. I really enjoyed actually my fight of the year was Swanson Choi.
I hate you.
I also really enjoyed the Polo Reyes fight with
I enjoyed those fights. They clearly weren't as good as Lawler.
But see, I felt like those were more slugfests. And then Condit
was a slugfest too. It was
but it was more technical.
It was a way better fight.
There were more ebbs and flows.
You've lost your mind. Continue.
I enjoyed Rory Lawler more, but that
wasn't the same year.
No, I know, but you said best fight of all time. And
yeah, people pick that one a lot. I think that fight is wildly overrated. I think it's a good fight.
I think Lawler Condit is, but hey, I also thought Lawler won the fight. So
I think most people who think Rory Lawler 2 is Haven't watched that fight in a long time.
Because
that
if
fight
you watch
is mostly boring as shit in the middle rounds where Rory's just picking him apart. But then it's dope because at the end of the fourth, Robbie Lawler like does the stare down thing with his fucked up face, and then he comes out and just wills himself to victory. Like it has a dope ending, but the middle section is like, oh, Rory's just pulling away by beating him up.
Yeah, the first couple rounds were like, I honestly, I've tried to watch it again. The first rounds aren't really that like thrilling in comparison. I mean, yeah, like the third, late third, I guess, the fourth, they were decent, but like taking in account the full fight, I just didn't feel like it was. I kind of felt the same way. I felt like it was a little overrated just because the first couple rounds weren't that thrilling.
Doesn't matter because Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje are about to have the greatest fight of all time.
Probably.
Exactly.
And it doesn't really matter because Alex Oliveira is probably going to finish Carlos Condit. I said a few days ago, either on the MMA Circus or the other show I did on Sunday, that Alex Oliveira would decision Carlos Condit. I'm kind of rethought that. I'm thinking he might pound him out. I think he might catch him late in the fight, probably the third round or so, and get a ground and pound stoppage. He's just too dangerous. He goes for broke sometimes. It didn't work against Yancy Medeiros, but hey, that was the best fight last year, hands down, in my opinion. And Condit just doesn't have what it takes to be a elite fighter at welterweight anymore. And so I'm going to go Oliveira by third round TKO. All right, this is what we've all been waiting for. The main event, lightweight division, Dustin the Diamond Poirier versus Justin the Highlight Gaethje. 155-pound clash. Very important for the division. Incredible matchup on paper. Please, MMA gods, do something good for us. We haven't had much good in the past little while. Volkov knocking out Verdun was a lot of fun and morally fun as well. But hey, let's hope this is really fun. Poirier, Gaethje. Jed, who's the pick?
I am stunned that Dustin Poirier is the favorite here. Absolutely flabbergasted. There's no reason for that. It's insane. Justin Gaethje is going to beat the ever-loving shit out of him. And that's just it. Like, I'm not going to give you a huge technical analysis. Justin Gaethje lost to Eddie Alvarez, and that fight was awesome. Due credit to Eddie Alvarez, had a really smart game plan and was a tough enough son of a bitch to do it, to fight through the hell. Dustin Poirier just isn't. Not casting aspersions on the man. He is not built to the same shoe leather shit that Eddie Alvarez is. Now I want to be clear. I would pick Dustin Poirier to beat the fuck out of Eddie Alvarez if they fought again. Totally would. I think he definitely would do it. Styles make fights, and Dustin Poirier is, shit. We saw Eddie Alvarez get off his offense for like 1 minute in the Dustin Poirier fight, and legal knee or whatever. Like, whatever. He fucked up Dustin Poirier for like the 1 minute he got to do the damn thing. And the 1 minute of doing the damn thing is the entirety of Justin Gaethje's game. Like, Dustin Poirier is not going to move and stick on the outside and rip shots to the body to slow Justin Gaethje down. He is going to try and stick and move, and he's going to get his front leg hacked the fuck off by chopping low kicks. He's going to get drawn into throwing hands. And, yeah, he might sting Gaethje, but Gaethje's going to sting him back. And I know who has the better chin of the two, and it's Justin Gaethje. I think everybody took all the wrong lessons from the Eddie Alvarez fight. If Gaethje is the underdog here, I had no expectation of that and was genuinely shocked. Like I said, I think before the Eddie Alvarez fight, I thought Justin Gaethje might be the best lightweight in the world. Obviously, Eddie Alvarez beat him and beat him clean. I still think Justin Gaethje, I'm probably taking him over Tony Ferguson. I think he's one of, if not the toughest fight for Khabib. I think he is just a shit pile of a fight from most people in this division, and Dustin Poirier is one of them. Give me Justin Gaethje with a second round TKO.
I mean, I feel like this it could either be crazy or somebody could go out there and just get starched, because I still question both their chins. I mean, I wouldn't have Gaethje knocked out as viciously as he did the last fight, but he's also taken so much damage throughout his career, especially in the Palomino fights, which are some of the best fights, honestly, I think, in World Series of fighting history, but also in lightweight history. They're ridiculous. And also, Poirier has taken so much damage. I feel like he always gets knocked out in the fights that he's supposed to win. Michael Johnson, Conor McGregor. I mean, he wasn't supposed to win, I feel like, either. He might have been the underdog, but, like, I mean, he still, like, had a chance, especially after putting together pretty impressive win streaks. Then he got choked out by Chan Sung Jung in his first main event. I think he's lost. I could be wrong. Has Dustin Poirier lost every main event he's been in? I'm just trying to check.
He beat Anthony Pettis, like, in November.
Yeah, I was there for that. What the hell am I talking about? Okay, well, yeah. So he did beat Anthony Pettis there. I was there for that. He looks pretty impressive doing it. But then again, Anthony Pettis is not the same Anthony Pettis. And he also got injured due to a rib injury. I'm going to take Justin Gaethje in this one. I don't really have to really talk about it long. It's going to be a great fight, I think, either way. I really don't want either to get finished early because I really want to see this one keep going for obvious reasons. But I think Justin Gaethje, I think he should utilize his wrestling tools because I feel like that could be a pretty beneficial factor for him. And one thing he doesn't do a whole lot, and Poirier has hinted on that Gaethje doesn't really utilize the tools that he needs. He said he is a good fighter, but just doesn't really have the full craft that he probably should implement in his fights. But I really think Gaethje is going to be able to go out there and maybe crack Poirier. As we've seen, I feel like Poirier has a weaker chin, despite the fact that Gaethje just gets tagged a little bit more because his face is pretty much his like defensive mechanism. But, you know, if that's his defensive way and it works for him, which it has, then good. I think it's going to be a great fight, though, either way. I'm going to take Justin Gaethje. Don't want to talk about it too much longer. Going to be a great fight. We all know it's probably going to be our fight of the night pick. Could be ending early, but I think Gaethje is going to get the victory by the exact same pick that Jet said. I've got a second-round knockout in his favor.
You went Justin Gaethje, right?
I did.
All right. I am going to change things up and go with Dustin the Diamond Poirier in this fight. Not just because you guys are picking Gaethje, of course, but I do legitimately think Poirier will win. I think he is a sharper striker between him and Gaethje. I think I'm very interested to see how Justin Gaethje rebounds from the knockout loss. And I know, Jed, you sort of implied maybe to not put too much into it. I still am interested to see how he comes back. I mean, the thing is, he's taken so much damage over his not brief career, but he's not been around for decades or anything. And so once you get knocked out the first time, given the fact that he's taken so much damage previous to the Eddie Alvarez fight in December, he might just be done. And I mean, I don't think that'll be the case. I think he'll be relatively okay, but he might not have a chin, or his chin could be considerably worse. And I think that is a fair argument. I think that's possible. But I think just stylistically, this isn't really a good matchup for either guy. Both guys are gonna get beat up. It's a
really good matchup for Justin Gaethje, I'm telling you guys. It's a really good matchup.
Both guys are gonna get beat up pretty badly here. Justin Gaethje might have more tools on the feet, keeping in mind he has brutal leg kicks. Dustin Poirier, I mean, we have to, I should mention it. I mean, his chin by no means is great. He was knocked out by Conor McGregor. A lot of people are, and that was at 145. So I think Poirier's chin has definitely gotten better at 155, just having 10 less pounds to cut. I'm going to take the diamond because I think he can outpoint Gaethje on the feet, which not many people can do. Eddie Alvarez did it. He was able to land the knee late in the third round of their 3-round fight, which was quite a bit of fun, and stop Gaethje for the very first time, defeat Gaethje for the very first time. I think Poirier might follow this up with another win. He's on a roll right now. Gaethje was until December. I think Gaethje should have sat out a lot longer than he did. He's basically coming back 4 months after losing by knockout, after taking a lot of damage in a war. I don't think we should see Gaethje now. I think he should have sat out to like the fall. I think that would have been a lot better for his health, and I think it would have been a lot smarter. But hey, it's Justin Gaethje. You know he wants to fight. You know he wants the money. I don't blame him. I just don't think it'll end up being the right decision, because I do think he'll lose. I don't need to keep going on. I think this will be a war. If Justin Gaethje wins, don't color me surprised. That will not be a surprising result. Before that, I mean, the thing is, before the Eddie Alvarez fight, I was nearly convinced Justin Gaethje was the best lightweight in the world, and now I'm thinking he'll get decision by Dustin Poirier. Actually, I'll go Poirier by 4th round TKO. The thing is, I don't think Gaethje's gas tank can. I mean, he has gone 5 rounds, but taking the damage he does and will against Poirier, I don't think he'll be that fresh at all once it hits the championship rounds, or maybe even sooner. He was real tired in the 2nd round against Michael Johnson. He still won just because he kind of goes for broke and is Justin Gaethje. That's how he fights. But I think Dustin Poirier is going to be able to pick him apart and then really start landing the heavy leather in the later rounds. And I think he will stop Justin Gaethje with a ground and pound TKO, hurt him a little bit, stun him, and then follow it up with some ground and pound. And that'll be a wrap. So Dustin Poirier, 4th round TKO over Justin Gaethje. That is my pick for the UFC Glendale main event. Although I will say I was surprised that Poirier opened as the underdog, so as the favorite. I expected Gaethje, as tough as he is, as fan favorite as he is, I figured he'd be the betting favorite. But nonetheless, Poirier, 4th round TKO. And that is it for UFC on Fox 29, UFC Glendale, UFC on Fox, Poirier versus Gaethje. Let us move on to our post-fight bonus predictions and our underdog pick of the week. Wes, I'll let you go first. Who do you got?
Well, I didn't want to pick Poirier Gaethje as a fight of the night because it could end early, and also I know you both are picking it, so it's probably like we're all going to pick it. But I feel like if there's going to be any others, I think Luke Sanders versus Pat Williams could be a really, really good fight and fun fight, and that's the opener fight of the card, which is definitely one to watch. It's going to be on Fight Pass, so that's definitely going to be a consideration. And I would say if Condit pulled the trigger, Alex Oliveira versus Carlos Condit could be pretty good. But I'm going to pick the main event just because if it goes past the first, it's going to be freaking wild, and we already know it's going to be wild. Thought about doubling down for Gaethje on performance of the night, but I'm not. I feel like Gaethje's, if he could very well get 2 if it is a fight of the night and he does get the win. But I'm going to be taking – I wanted to go Carlos Jr. I'm going to take Israel Adesanya. I feel like if he gets some crazy knockout, he'll get one. And then it was either between Gilbert Burns or Muslim Salikov, but I'm going to take Salikov. I think he'll get some crazy knockout over Ricky Randy. And then
you
on top of that –
with the main event for your fight of the night, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, Salikov, Adesanya for performances. And then underdog pick, I'm going to go Krzysztof Jotko. It was either between him or, I guess, John Moraga, but I'm more confident in Jotko because they're, as Jed, you mentioned it, Nick, you mentioned it, they're pretty much the same dude. But I think I'll take Jotko there for my underdog pick.
I'm taking Gaethje Poirier for fight of the night. So
I am too.
It's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
I'm taking. I think you could probably guess my performances. Israel Adesanya is going to do something really dope. He's a performance bonus, and I'm taking Justin Gaethje because he's also going to do something really dope. I am doubling up on him. I know, Wes, you mentioned that you thought about it.
There's a great chance. I mean, you very well could be in for it. Michael Johnson, he did it there. So, I mean, not bad at all.
Yep, and I'm tripling up on him because I'm taking Gaethje as my underdog of the week since he's a dog.
Good picks.
All right. My fight tonight, as I said already, Poirier Gaethje. I hate to keep it sort of the same and boring, but if you're not picking fight tonight, Poirier Gaethje, hey, maybe it doesn't end up being fight tonight, but that's the safe pick. That's the smart pick. That is the pick for this card. Now, my performance bonuses or my performance bonuses, this gets a little interesting. The thing is, I'm not confident Poirier does get the job done, but does the winner of the main event get $100K in total? Probably. So I guess I got to give one to Poirier. I might give the next one to Alex Oliveira, which kills me just because I don't have a performance winner out of the 2 last fights, so that kind of sucks. But otherwise, I mean, Carlos Jr. could get one, Gilbert Burns, but other than those 2, I'm not too sure.
Dude, when Oliveira knocks people out there, it's pretty freaking vicious. So
no, it is. I feel like Condit might. I'm gonna go Dustin Poirier and Gilbert Burns. Those are going to be my performance winners.
Man, Gilbert Burns is underrated. I think there's a good chance he could maybe sneak one in.
And my underdog pick of the week, just because I believe it's the only underdog I'm picking out of this 14-fight card, typical me, will be Krzysztof Jotko.
Okay. You're also taking oh no, yeah, you did take one underdog. That's right. Damn. Yeah, awesome. All we gotta do is wrap up with our DK teams. I'll lead with mine since I'm here and ready to go. Pretty simple team. I actually think this DraftKings week is one of the best of the year as far as the opportunities to make a team. I just felt like there were so many different incarnations of teams, and I like it wasn't simple for me to pick this. I don't love it. Maybe I'll change it, but Justin Gaethje, he's an underdog. I think he is clearly going to win this fight. He's obviously on my team. Israel Adesanya, obviously on my team. Both my performance bonuses guys on the team. Jotko, if he wins, he's basically going to guarantee you like 75 points because that's what he does every time he wins, which is about $100 per point, which is pretty solid value. I mean, if you think about it, when you're paying $9,000 for a fighter, you're usually looking for them to get at least 90 points. So Jotko, I think, is solid value. Lima, the other underdog I'm taking, so he's kind of making everything else work. It costs $8,000. And then I'm taking Alex Oliveira and Antonio Carlos Jr. Maybe I would take Wilson Hayes over one of those two. There's a lot of options at that point that makes sense. But yeah, that's my team.
Cool. We got three of the same. I too have Adesanya and Muslim Salikov. I think is different. I actually have him.
I don't have Salikov.
The other two that we have the same. I have Jotko, and I also have Justin Gaethje, as you mentioned. So those are the first four. The other two I have Gilbert Burns. I'm pretty confident he might be able to get a submission victory in that one. And then because I was kind of low on money, I went Tim Boetsch, and I feel like he's going to be the guy that, I think we all mentioned, like he's the guy you wouldn't expect to get a victory if you pick against him, and then somehow he will get the job done, and he'll do it in pretty cool fashion. So I thought maybe he would be a good one to put on there. Also, because he's looked pretty decent. He's only lost one fight, I think, in his last 5, and it was to Jacare and everybody else he's knocked out. So, I mean, he could look impressive in that. So that is my DraftKings team.
Well, as for mine was a bit tougher just because I am only picking the one underdog, and so this wasn't the best week. But I feel like some of these fights are closer where it sort of is okay at the end of the day. I'll start things off with Israel Adesanya. Do we all have him on our teams?
We do.
Yes.
We do. That makes sense. I'm also going to go with, I believe, the biggest favorite on the card, Gilbert Burns.
Yep.
I also have another big favorite in Antonio Carlos Jr.
Okay.
And then I round things out with 3 underdogs, one of which I'm picking Krzysztof Jotko. And then the other 2, one has a real good shot, and his name is Justin Gaethje. I think even in defeat, say he gets knocked out in round 4 like I'm predicting, he's still going to rack up probably 70 to 80 points. And so at 7,800, needing an underdog, I think Justin Gaethje is a no-brainer pick. And then the other one I don't like, but he's 7,300. I needed a big underdog, and that'll be Ricky Rainey. He's a pretty flashy striker. He could, I don't think he'll give Muslim Salikov problems, but he might be able to pick up, hell, even if he picks up 30, 40 points, which, hey, it's probably a lot to ask of him. But even if he does, I'm not going to complain. At 7,300, he's sort of the one throwaway fighter on my team. And so I guess I couldn't, at 7,300, I could go, who could I go? Tim Boetsch, but I have Carlos Jr. I could go Adam Weistrick, but that's a dumb play. And that's it. I could go Patrick Williams. That actually, I would, it's either going to be Patrick Williams or Ricky Rainey. I'm going to stay with Rainey because I think Williams will pick up less points because he'll get grinded on. But that's sort of the 2 I would fight over, so to speak. But that's my team: Gaethje, Adesanya, Rainey, Jotko, Burns, and Carlos Jr. And that's a wrap for the show. Thank you all.
All 3 of us. I want you to be clear. I started my team with the 3 most obvious picks for me, which were Gaethje, Adesanya, and Jotko, and all 3 of us have them. The other 3 spots were the ones that were in flux. Those 3 were never changing for me, and you guys just both fucking copied my shit.
You're very welcome,
to be fair, I do have the same picks as you on those.
Yeah,
so
you do. That's true. Nick's just a copycat.
How much do we differ on our actual picks? Like, not for DraftKings, but for our picks.
You and Wes differ on you. So you took Dobson, whereas Wes took Mueller. You took Hayes, Wes took Moraga, and then you took Poirier, Wes took Gaethje. Me and Wes have all the same picks. We're actually pretty different because, like, I took Lima as the lone underdog there. Wes took Miller as the lone underdog. Wes took Moraga as the lone underdog, and then you took Poirier as the lone underdog. So 4 fights so there's some difference in the grouping.
Poirier is the lone underdog.
Or not as the underdog, but as you were the only, both Wes and I took Gaethje.
Oh, yes.
So,
okay.
So there are 4 fights where there's dissension among us.
Cool. Fair enough. Well, I'm sure Jed, you'll win again because that's kind of what 2018 has brought us. But
we'll see.
Hopefully bonuses do me well, and hey, you never know. Anyways, episode 105 of Before the Battle, UFC Glendale edition in the books. Thank you all for watching. We really appreciate it. If you don't mind, give this video a thumbs up down there. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel down there. If you have any feedback for the show, good or bad, drop a message in the comment section down below.
Fuck your feedback if it's bad.
If it's bad, say it.
Fuck it.
I just probably won't respond. I might give it a thumbs down, but hey, say it if you want. Free speech. This is Canada. This is the U.S. Anyways.
Fuck your bullshit. You can find my work at MMAfighting.com. And follow me on the Twitter machine at JedKMeshew. That's it.
Yeah, you can find my writing over at MMAsucker.com. You can find me on Twitter at AllThatMMA. You can also find me on Instagram at Wesley Riddle and also at AllThatMMA because I'm starting to pick up that Instagram once again and trying to post a little bit of content here and there. But besides that, that's all from me. Always appreciate being on the show with you fellas.
You're kicked off the show as of next week. Breaking news. Just kidding. Just kidding. All right. Anyways, you can find me on the Twitter at Nick Baldwin MMA. You can find all of my writing over at bloodyelbow.com. You can find all my interviews. Some are there. Some, all of them are on this channel. So once again, go hit that subscribe button. Please do. Really would appreciate it. I dropped an interview or 2 interviews yesterday. One with Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. The other with Marvin Vittori, who we are all picking against this weekend against Israel Adesanya. I will have some articles coming your way this week, or I guess this weekend as well. That's pretty much it. For Jed Meshew, for Wes Riddle, I'm Nick Baldwin. Enjoy the fights on Saturday.
Love you guys.